If you think you're going to be operating business in the same way a year from now, you're very much mistaken. AI is changing everything, including one of our most beloved, Google, right? Google My Business, Google for Business, all of it is changing at the highest level because of AI. My name is Sari Kimball. I'm the creator and founder of Food Business Success. I help brands start and scale their package home products to go from 0 to 100K and beyond in my programs, Food Business Success and Master Your Business. And this video today is a companion piece to the podcast episode for Food Business Success, episode 190 with Dax Hammon. And after we recorded, he was showing me around and it was blowing my mind. It was like, oh my gosh, we have to show people this because we talk about it on the podcast, but until you really see it, you just don't comprehend it. And as business owners or potential entrepreneurs, we need to get in front of this. We need to be at least on the ahead of the curve, right? So that we can take advantage of this and not be left behind. There's a reason why 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And I want to help you be in that top 20% that's still going. And to do that, we need to understand and we need to take advantage of AI. And especially as direct-to-consumer businesses, in many cases, we need to understand how it's going to change our relationship with Google, as well as all the other platforms out there. Here is the supplemental video that Dax so generously made, and his contact information is in the video, so you can get a hold of him. We're also going to be bringing him back inside my membership, Inside Fuel. So come and join us. Go get Food Business Success and get 5 months inside the program. And we are going to be having these conversations because if we can make your time more effective and optimize it, you're going to get time back that you can then go be doing other things to help grow your business. If you're loving this channel, I would so appreciate if you would hit subscribe and also like and comment on this video. All right, without further ado, here is Dax.
Hi, my name is Dax. I'm the founder and CEO of FOMO.ai. And I love this headline as a way to get started because I think it tells us a lot about the real potential of AI and where it's taking us. We as a company, for instance, are building non-human supplemental marketing team members, which I realize is a big statement to make, but we're actually well on the way towards doing that. And it will be very feasible to have $1 billion company in the next few years where there is one human being and then there is lots and lots of AI non-human employees. It'd be interesting to see how humanity starts to label those things. And briefly about us, we are, as I mentioned, building these supplemental marketing team members, but also a whole variety of AI marketing tools. Keep an eye on the website FOMO.ai so you can see what's coming and what's new. We also do everything as a managed service. So if you're watching any of this and think, I don't have time to take advantage of AI, then feel free to let us know. And then also we're going to talk a little bit today about the difference between AI and automation. But none of that is the major headline today. The major headline today is that Google is having to change in fundamental ways in order to respond to the existence of AI. And I'm going to go as far as to say Google, for most of us today, we think of as a search engine. We need to find something, we put in a search query, it gives us a list of results, and we go to those results. And we've all used Google so much because it works well, right? We don't even have to think about it, really. We ask, we know we're going to get some sort of result. It's stopping being a search engine, and it is becoming a knowledge engine. And that presents this once-in-a-decade opportunity. This will be like TikTok when TikTok started, Facebook and Insta when they started, right? Now is the window because most people have not woken up to what is happening. So this is what I call my playground deck. There's all sorts of fun stuff in here. And given how fast AI is changing, then I like to sort of keep this up to date with new examples. On the way to talking about the Google stuff, I'll show you a couple of interesting things. Video creation through text prompting is now here. And I like to use this example because there's a lot of complex movement in here. And you've got to wrap your head around the idea that this building, this town, this dog, these windows never existed in the world ever before. They were dreamt out of the AI based on things that it had seen and been trained on. But in reality, this is all brand new stuff that exists. And if you go back and watch it again, you'll see some silly things like it leaves its back foot behind, right? It's not perfect. And you could critique the exact movement of the dog. But it's pretty damn good for an early version. And it's very good for creating social media content where I just think in passing, people won't notice those small little things. So lots of things we could be talking about. If you want us to do a custom training for you or your team, then feel free. We will happily do so, including like the future impact of AI on society, etc. Let's clear up, though, a common confusion about the difference between AI and automation. Automation has actually been around for a lot longer than any of this new AI stuff is. It's now just being thrust into the spotlight because the automation piece is how a lot of AI stuff gets glued together. So I'm going to show you a real example. But AI helps with human decision making, right? It feels a bit like that. And the better and better it gets, the more it will be feeling like human decision making. Automation is just sort of executing the steps, right? The glue. Great example. This is a client, a podcast production company. And what you're looking at here is a screenshot from their Slack channel, right? And what we've built out is something that saves them 5, 6, 7 hours every time a client onboards and significantly removes almost to zero any potential error rate. Their systems are up in the top right-hand corner here. It doesn't matter if your systems are the same or similar or different. It's all the same principle. So they use Slack for their internal communication, ClickUp for project management, ActiveCampaign for CRM, Chargebee instead of Stripe for transactions, Google Forms, Google Drive. And you will see 2 automations run. So in this scenario, somebody has gone to hivecast.fm to inquire about podcast production and has signed up for one of their services. And this first Zap in Zapier, which is in this case, part of the glue system we use, there are 2 major automation platforms, Zapier and Make.com. Zapier is probably a little bit easier day to day. Make is like the bulletproof enterprise version that we like to build on. So in this case, this Slack message got generated, the top one, that says, hey, congratulations, you've got a new client, right? And this one is designed to do nothing but recognize the fact a transaction happened and come back and tell the team, this transaction has happened. I'm going to go off and do all of this wonderful stuff, right? If you don't see the next step appear or you have any problems, let me know. So that was at 3:23 p.m. on this particular day, 3:41, so not long, 18 minutes later, another message came in that said, I've done it all. And so what does doing it all means? Well, in this case, what's happened is the person came in through Chargebee and did the transaction. This automation grabbed all of their information, including what they signed up for, and put it into ActiveCampaign, their CRM system. Based on what they signed up for, it then added them to ClickUp and built out in their project management system all of the initial steps that they have to go through as a team, and it automatically assigned them based on a whole bunch of criteria. It went into Google Drive and it built the client folder, the client subfolders, and imported document templates. And it went back and set the right permissions for the client-specific folder and added that to ActiveCampaign. As all that was happening, everything was going into the CRM, and then a welcome email goes out to the client a few minutes later that says you've got 2 steps that you have to do next. The first one is here's a link to click to your onboarding call, and the second is here is a link to your client folder. It's already fully built for you and fully customized to the service you have. Fantastic, right? A human being didn't touch that at all. It happened within minutes. It's an amazing onboarding process for the client. Makes them feel really special, that you really care about them, and probably saves somebody a whole bunch of hours to do it. Reduced those error rates as well, which is the other advantage of automation. In this particular set of automations, AI wasn't used, but we also have automations, for instance, like one that reads my emails every day. And before I get in and online at 6 a.m., it sends me a Slack message saying, I think there were these 3 emails that were very important yesterday, and 2 of them you didn't even open. Here's a summary of them. I've written a draft response for you, and it's sitting in your draft folders, right? So that's a use of combining the automation stuff with AI. But again, still not the best thing we're going to talk about today. So let me come out of this and let's go down and talk about what's happening with Google. 2023, January-ish, we all mainstream got to hear about the existence of ChatGPT. Google were taken aback by OpenAI's success and the rapid uptake of ChatGPT. And that means that anybody today, as Google now responds to that, a little bit of panic initially, right? They rolled out something called Bard, and now it's Gemini. They're testing a lot of things. I'm sure they're going to have some great stuff, and the new Gemini is really quite good. But their initial reaction was, oh my God, we need to catch up. And so they started to think about what is the consumer experience in search going forward, and it is not the consumer experience we all have today. 2 things are happening. The first is, for over a decade, Google was our starting point on the web for all of us, really, for what we were doing. It was a common phrase that Google is every website's homepage. You would Google something and you would often end up somewhere other than the homepage of a website. We now have this divestiture of attention. TikTok is a primary search engine for many, many people. Why go read something if you can watch a short video clip? ChatGPT is taking over a massive amount of attention because it's interactive. You can have a conversation with it. You can ask queries. And interestingly, ChatGPT largely uses Bing for its ability to search the web, or it's using knowledge up to a few months out of date that it's been trained on prior. Both could be good depending on your circumstance. The other thing then that's happening is we have Hey Siri and Hey Google, and I always try and say those a little quieter. I don't want to set them off in your home. These are important, even though Hey Google uses Google and Hey Siri ultimately uses Google. They are different because human nature says that when we type a search, we tend to type in fragmented statements. Hotel, San Francisco. When we use our voices, we tend to ask questions, and there is so much more information inside of questions. Best hotel for pets in San Francisco. Well, totally different search, totally different set of information for Google to be able to help you. So Google wants conversational search. Google wants questions. Interestingly, my last ad tech company, we were collecting 14 billion search terms a month from Google, Yahoo, Bing to do ad targeting, and it simply wasn't enough to go as granular as you would think we'd be able to go. So that tells you a lot about how what we type is just nowhere near as much information as you would expect, but what we search with our voices really is. This is better for Google, and it will therefore ultimately be better for you as a consumer. Whether it's better for you as a business owner depends on if you take advantage of what Google is doing now. So what it is doing is not a sexy name. It's called SGE, Search Generative Experience. I'm going to show you 2 real-world examples. But it is that idea of making it more conversational, prompting you with questions, listening to your questions, giving you answers. It no longer wants to just have you search and send you away somewhere. It wants to hold on to you for a while and help you more before you go anywhere else. And it believes, and I think it's probably right, it believes that is now the experience we're all being trained to want. The reason why I call it the biggest threat if you already rely on organic traffic and the biggest opportunity if you don't is because a study in December 23, when it looked at all of the domain sites and pages that are indexed in Google, in the old Google, as I'm now calling it, right? The Google you're used to is old Google. In the new Google, the SGE Google, 96% of those domains from old Google don't appear. So all of that SEO work people have done, all of that time and attention they've put into it, probably will have very little impact in the new Google. And this isn't some sort of future fanciful, oh, maybe Google will do this. They've been testing this for a while, and it's already the default experience in over 100 countries around the world. There are billions of people using this today. If you'll sign up for the preview at labs.google.com, you will see now the frequency that it's showing you SGE is becoming more and more common. Google kind of have it nailed. What they're really trying to figure out is how do they bring AdWords revenue back into it. And people sort of say, well, why would they threaten the AdWords revenue? SGE is definitely a threat to that. However, they have to. They have to give the consumers the experience, otherwise they're going to lose their AdWords revenue anyway, because you're not going to want to use them, right? You're going to use ChatGPT and other things. So, 2 examples. First one, nice, simple. This is somebody doing a search, old school Google, best semi-moist, fridge-free kibble for dogs. I didn't know that was a thing. You might know that was a thing. This is what we have a client selling. This is old school Google, right? You did the search on the Google homepage. Less common now, actually. Usually we end up there through the browser bar. And you get onto what is called a SERP, a search engine results page, right? I'll sort of demystify some of the marketing terms that exist. And this is what's called a classic blue link in the search marketing world, right? It's a blue link that you click on. Note there's a few of those on the page, but note also people also ask is appearing most of the time now. And what is people also ask? It's questions. And this is because Google has been training itself based on the questions we want to have in conversation for quite some time now. Old school Google, new school Google, no blue links. Arguably, there's some things in the top right-hand corner to click on, but you'll see why in a second example that might not be the case. Instead of, here's some links, go click them, now it is, look at this, I've gone off and found the content for you, right? At this point, Google is saying, I read some sites, and I'm summarizing that information back to you. And the call to action is not, great, here's now the blue link that came from. Actually, it's look at these questions at the bottom. It's ask a follow-up, whether you can type in your own, or it's prompting you with, from people also ask data, what it thinks are the most common questions you might want to answer next. Google's holding on to the person, doesn't want to let them go in the same way, okay? So let's have a look at another example. Before we do that, I often at this time get asked, well, what's going to happen to all these clicks to Google, from Google? Well, you remember when I said it was the biggest threat and opportunity? Because of this stat. 50% of all clicks from Google are going to disappear, right? That is the industry-wide best guess at the moment. The clicks you get should be better informed, but if you don't get yourself inserted into that conversation we're seeing here, you no longer have a chance of being in the transaction. Not in the conversation, not in the transaction. I'm going to show you how you get in the conversation. Auto might not be relevant to you, but this is an example worth watching. So much money goes into auto in Google that we find Google tests in auto a lot. And therefore, seeing an example of how this might look in auto is relevant to every industry. Here we go. So we're doing a Ford or Chevy more reliable search. Old school Google, a little bit of summary information at the top, classic blue link. People also ask, right, those questions. And then even Q&A coming in from Quora, right? But still, typical blue link is your call to action. Turn on SGE, search generative experience, and here we go. More summary information, summary panel of charts and graphs that Google have put together for us. More information, clarifying information, trucks and cars at the bottom. Prompts, questions, ability to ask your own. Click on one of those questions. It's not taking you to a site. It's summarizing more and more information. And at this point, we're still kind of in a fair battle, right? This is still taking us Ford or Chevy, right? Which breaks down more Ford or Chevy. We've now ended up into the question of a Chevy's known for breaking down. That's, forget AI, that's just good marketing on behalf of Ford, right? Ford or Ford favoring content is in the conversation. And this is steering somebody to Ford being in the transaction as well, right? Because you don't want to be Chevy associated with the question of known for breaking down. But we're still in Google. We're still on that same search and we're prompting us question by question by question. Even then, when we get to, where did we get to there? Oh, so then we went, so would you say Ford is better, right? So now we're getting sort of that confirmation bias, which is really interesting. Even then, when we get to the buy-in question of, okay, I'm sold. I know what I'm doing. Where's the best place to buy new and used in Colorado? We didn't have to say where's the best place to buy a car, and we didn't need to say Ford because Google was just talking to us about this, right? And so now we end up on this list of dealers. You would think if we clicked on one of these dealers, we would now go to the dealer page, but not. Watch this right-hand column, right? When we try and click on one of these dealers, Google now summarizes that right-hand column scrolling into everything it knows about that dealer, right? All the information about it, couple of quick reviews. They're not going to love the top ones 2 out of 5. Events, and maybe it's going to encourage the dealer to put on more events so they get more real estate on this page. Questions and answers, and still the ability to ask a question. And then popular times, which is based on cell phone tracking. They do that, Apple or Google devices. And then the overall review. I bet 90% plus of people now don't need to click to the dealer website. Right? They've got all the information they need. They might end up doing business with that dealer. You've got to buy your car somewhere, right? You can't just drive around in an AI car, but may not involve a visit to that website. And that is very impactful to most people's thinking about their marketing. This is SG. So how do you get in the conversation so you're in the transaction? Well, there's a couple of things. One is called helpful content guidelines, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But the other interesting one is EATS, double EATS, as it's often called in marketing. And it stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So if Google's going to go from being a search engine to a knowledge engine, what it has to do is figure out whose content does it trust, right? So let's have a look at example scoring. Let's take the broad topic of skiing, and then let's take the narrow topic of skiing with little children, right? If you were to score me on those two things, let's say in comparison to somebody with deep multi-year experience in both. For skiing, I've been lucky. I grew up in England, so where we skied was France. So I've skied a lot of years. I probably have a 5 out of 10 in terms of skiing, right? I'm not a back bowl skier. I'm not an Olympic skier. I'm not a backcountry skier, right? So I'm not probably going to get higher than that. Expertise, not really, right? I never trained anybody to ski. I don't have any qualifications in skiing. And therefore, I'm probably not the authority. Right? If people think, oh, I've got a question about skiing, who do I know? I'm going to go ask Dax that question about skiing, right? It's funny, I even said my own name wrong. That's not me, right? So I'm going to have a low double EAT score for the broad topic of skiing. Now let's think about the very narrow topic of skiing with young children. I have a lot of kids, and I've taken 3 of them skiing, and including when they're little, right? And skiing with little kids is different, as any of you as parents know with skiing. Is it fun? We'll see. So I have more experience on that niche topic probably the most, right? Because most people who are interested in this haven't probably yet done it. So I don't know, maybe I'm a 7 out of 10. Expertise, some, right? I have some experience that makes me a bit of an expert on it's better to stay nearer the slopes. This is ideas for clothing. Take snacks. Think about where the bathrooms are, right? I've got some expertise. And so therefore, probably, and the people who know me in my friend group, if they were to take their little kids skiing for the first time, they might say, all right, I'm going to go ask Dax something, and therefore maybe I deserve a couple of points on authority. If you are a ski instructor and you spend your life skiing with little kids, your scores should be way above me. Right? So as Google is ranking us, and if we both wrote articles on the same topics, my article should in theory do less well. I should be in the conversation less. So the trick is to really hone in on the niches within your topics and then build up your double EAT score based around it. And we have to send those signals to Google. So lots of lovely sites that we consult to, do work with, etc. Let's use an example here of GQ. In this case, gut health article on GQ magazine. You will see that what they've started to do, highlighted here, is the authors who wrote it. And those author bios are now actually clickable. And on the author bio page, we now have, I've underlined all of the things that broadcast that double EAT score for these topics to Google, including, I've highlighted at the bottom, the link to Tom Ward's personal Twitter/X account. That never happened a few years ago. GQ was never going to let an author link out to their personal content, but now GQ knows that that adds to Tom's authority, and therefore this article will do better, and therefore their whole GQ domain is going to do better from an authority point of view. So how do we make this happen? Well, there's still a little bit of old school SEO, right? We have to make sure your website's technically okay for Google. The requirements are going to change a bit with this, but some of that still matters. What we really care about is, instead of this nonsense idea from old school Google of, hey, here's a bunch of keywords, let's decide what you want to rank and make you rank for a few of them, right? That is going away. If you ask me in 6 months' time, where will I rank for skiing with kids? The only answer somebody like me could give is, for who? Because everybody's conversation with Google is different. The context that Google has on you is different. We are getting so many calls from companies now saying, I'm still ranking in the same position in Google, however, my traffic's dropping 20, 30, 40%, right? Ranking is not going to matter anymore. It is where you are in the conversation. And so we've built a bunch of AI tools that help us take keywords and ideas about what you think people are searching, turn that into sort of long tail keywords, which we evolve into the most common questions that are going to come up in the conversation. And then we turn that into a content strategy. And that's how you win, right? We've got to do all the helpful content stuff. We've got to do all the double eat stuff. But this is like a really good battle plan that we've developed. And these questions matter. So let's take an example of people wanting to figure out savings plans for college. In the US here, we call them 529s. There are lots of different questions. Some of you, if you have kids or you're in this industry, some of these questions might be very obvious, right? You think, for instance, what are the different options available to help pay for college, right? So this is like upper funnel, classic marketing language, upper funnel. They haven't necessarily decided about a 529 yet. They might not know about a 529 existing. They certainly haven't chosen you at this point. And then it goes a little bit down the funnel, right? What factors should I consider? How can I ensure I'm making the right choice? And then there's going to be a lot of lifestyle conversation around this topic. What am I ethically and morally obliged to? How do other parents think about this? What are my kids' educational goals? How can I help them? And all the way down in sort of financial concern goals, right? Can I afford it? What does this mean long term, etc.? All of these are questions in the conversation, and there will be thousands of conversations, far many in any industry that you could ever sort of predict. I mean, take recruitment, for instance, right? There'll be questions about the company. There'll be upper level funnel questions that bring you perhaps to that company. There might be questions comparing companies. There'll certainly be questions about benefits, time off, etc., right? Our job is not only to use the AI to help figure out those questions, but also to map them to your funnel and to your goals, so that when we take those questions and give it to our content team, which today is, AI today is human in the loop content, right? So we are combining human beings and AI tools to make world-class content to achieve these goals. When we give it to them, they already understand, based on your goals at any given time, it's mapped to a funnel and it's mapped to a set of audiences. The type of content also matters. So this is a cool looking chart, and what you will see is, in this big circle, every little circle around it is an element that can appear on a SERP, search engine results page, right? So classic blue links often shows up in old school Google. People also ask is up to 65% of the time for most industries. This one happens to be about the fashion industry. Video carousel is showing more and more, and product listed ads is showing more and more. And depending on the industry, this chart looks entirely different. This chart's starting to evolve because of SGE, but a lot of these same sorts of elements are still going to be there. And so Google wants to know, or wants you to know, when you are responding to these questions, what format should that be in, right? So at this point, we often get asked a lot of sort of common questions. So I'm going to run through 3 or 4 that are really, really interesting. The first one is, what does Google think about AI-generated content? Actually, Google's fine with it. Google has actually said that as long as the content is good and it is human-centric, i.e. you're not trying to stuff Google with stuff, Google are perfectly fine with it. March 23, they announced a big algorithm update to Google, of which some has already come into effect. We're monitoring that. The changes are interesting. And then May 5th is the next time there will be an update to that, and we will see what comes from that. But what Google are trying to do is clear up the nonsense AI bulk content that people put in there. You should be thinking about using AI to make better content more efficiently, lower cost, right? That should be the goal. And your volume may very well need to increase a little bit because of that, but not crazy amounts, right? And Google really wants you to focus on what it calls its helpful content guidelines. And this is the main bulk of those. And so this is what our writers are really thinking about when they are producing content. The next question then obviously is, well, if it's cheap and easy to make good content, why don't we produce 5,000 pieces a month? Well, people have tried it. As AI came about in 2023, some great opportunists really gave that a go, and they had some early temporary big financial wins. Google paid attention very quickly, cracked right down on that, and most of those domains that we know who tried this are now all blacklisted and really have no value whatsoever. So stuffing your site with thousands of pieces of content, sometimes even hundreds of pieces of content, is a very bad idea. Content is no longer publish it and forget it. Content is now about, remember, being in the conversation, and conversation evolves very quickly. And so what we have to do is keep updating and refreshing content. And that's why you're going to start seeing articles like this from Vogue. First of all, I didn't know there were beauty advent calendars. I have a lot of daughters, good to know. But actually, I certainly didn't know there were 41 best of them. Well, in reality, what probably happened here is they originally published 12 back in August, and then 15, and then 19, etc. When you refresh your content so you can tell Google it's the most up-to-date topic in that conversation, you can't just make a few changes. You have to make a substantial change, I believe is Google's word. So going from like 15 to 19 beauty advent calendars, that is a substantial change. And therefore, Google is going to accept that in the algorithm. So that's a good thing to do. And then finally on these FAQs, people often ask, well, if we've got to have this double eat stuff, we have to have profiles of people. Can we just create fake AI profiles of people? And actually, the AI doesn't care, and Google doesn't care. It's a perfectly fine thing to do, and we think this is going to become very common. Give you a sort of side example. It was announced that in Milan, a talent agency back in February 24 launched a new client, and she was already booking €12,000 a month, and she wasn't real. It was all AI generated images, and I'm sure it will become AI generated video. And so I don't think Google's really going to care if an author isn't real, as long as you can establish that that AI author has those double eat score goodnesses that we talked about. The reason why Sports Illustrated got torn apart was not because of Google, but because somebody wrote an article about them and people objected. And I actually think that's exactly the same scenario as when people first started putting chatbots on their website years ago, when they were kind of crappy, didn't give great answers, and they tried to pass them off as human, right? We all remember those. And now that's not what happens. Now usually the bot makes it clear that it is there to help you. And if you need to be connected to a human later, if it can't help you, then it will. And so it might just be about the transparency of the whole scenario. So jury's out on that one as a strategy. So that's what I wanted to show you today about Google SGE, Search Generative Experience, how it's reacting, this huge opportunity. There's my email address. There's my cell phone number. Texts are great. Always happy to answer questions. We are happy to take care of this SGE thing for you whilst this narrow window of opportunity exists. This is going to be another one of those things that we all wish we were in, just like TikTok at the beginning, Meta at the beginning, etc. So do not miss out on that opportunity. Enterprise scale, small business, we have you covered on all of that. Great team behind it. If the automation stuff looked interesting to you, also reach out. We have a dedicated team that build that, and we can explain to you how it's built in your own accounts, and we do 24/7 monitoring. And then finally, keep an eye on FOMO.ai. We are launching more and more AI marketing tools you can use. Generate your social media, write some content, do some of this SEO stuff, all sorts of things. So keep an eye on the site. But reach out. Appreciate your time, and no doubt we'll connect soon.